It all started when a woman was sitting in her bed eating some grapes. She'd just finished watching TV, but her show had been canceled early. Now she was trying to go to sleep, but the only thing on her mind were those loud footsteps above her head. They sounded like someone running back and forth on the other side of her bedroom ceiling. That was fine. She's been hearing them for weeks now, always at night. And every time she called the cops, they told her there was nothing up there. So she just tried to ignore it. But one night, right before her eyes, a hatch to her attic opened all by itself. A woman's scream echoed through the quiet neighborhood. But the next morning, the police officers who came to investigate said that everything was fine. The woman knew that something was wrong, though, and so did her gut. She never should have ignored what she heard that night. This is our channel, True Horror Stories. And today we're going to tell you the true horror story of the man in the attic. Queensland, Australia, year 2016. A single woman named Vicky lived alone in her home. Her kids had grown up and moved out years ago, and her husband had passed away. So now she lived all by herself. She didn't mind, though. She enjoyed her alone time and preferred it that way. Vicky was used to being on her own, but over time, she started feeling uneasy. She couldn't shake off the feeling that someone was watching her. She often heard footsteps in her attic late at night. It sounded like someone running around, dragging heavy objects across the wooden floorboards. Every time she heard it, she would turn on all the lights, grab her trusty baseball bat, and walk around her house to check for intruders. But she never found anyone. So she chalked it up to an overactive imagination. But then one night she heard it again. Vicky turned on her light and walked to her window. She looked out into the backyard, but she couldn't see anything. She went back to bed, but the noise continued. This time it was footsteps right above her bedroom. Vicky switched on her bedside lamp and stared at her ceiling. It wasn't her imagination. Something was definitely up there. She listened intently. She could hear the footsteps getting closer. Vicky got out of bed and slowly made her way to her front door. She thought that maybe if she pretended to leave, whatever was up in the attic would come out and she could catch it. But nothing happened. No matter how hard she tried, Vicky couldn't get rid of the feeling that she was being watched. One night, while she was brushing her teeth, she swore she saw the shadow of a person standing in her doorway. But when she turned around, there was nothing there. After a few weeks of not being able to sleep, Vicky called the police. When they arrived, they told her that they couldn't do anything about it because there was no evidence of a crime. She heard the officers talking outside her house. I'm sure that if she really saw something, we could have helped her. They said they couldn't find any signs of forced entry and that there was no way anyone could have gotten into her attic without leaving a trace. So the police left and Vicky was still in the dark. She didn't know what to do. Vicky thought to herself that maybe the sound in the attic was just her imagination. But after hearing the commotion above her head that night, she realized it was real. What she heard was definitely something moving around up there. It had to be an animal. She thought to herself, surely a human couldn't live up there without her knowing about it. However, Vicky couldn't help but worry about the possibility of a burglar using her attic as a hiding place. She even started keeping a baseball bat by her bed for protection. One night, while lying in bed listening to the footsteps above her, she grabbed her cell phone and started recording the sounds. She was determined to figure out what was making all that racket. In the beginning, all she managed to capture was the scurrying sound of a small animal. But then she heard something else, something that sent shivers down her spine. It was a voice, a man's voice humming a tune. It was low and raspy, and it seemed to be coming from the attic above her bedroom. Vicky felt her heart sink to her stomach. Could it be possible that there was a person living in her attic? As soon as the humming stopped, she heard heavy footsteps pounding on the wooden floor above her. She sat straight up in bed, her eyes wide with fear. She kept listening intently hoping to hear more, but the noise gradually faded away. When she checked the attic the next day, she found nothing. All she discovered was a pile of old, dusty boxes and some cobwebs. Vicky continued to hear the footsteps and the humming for the next few weeks. She even started to see other things too. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and see the silhouette of a man standing at the foot of her bed. She would scream and thrash around until the shadowy figure disappeared. One night, while lying in bed, she heard the footsteps and the humming once again. But this time, it was louder than ever before. She strained to listen, and then she heard something that made her blood run cold. The man was singing along to a song that was playing on her television. Vicky jumped out of bed and ran to her TV to change the channel. But the man in the attic started banging on the ceiling. His tapping grew louder and more frantic. Vicky stood frozen in fear, unable to move as the noise above her head intensified. That night, she decided enough was enough. She was going to find out once and for all what was going on in her attic. Armed with a flashlight, a large stick, and a lot of courage, she climbed up into her attic. As she pulled down the hatch, a gust of wind blew through, causing the old wooden door to slam shut. Vicky froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She tried to open the door, but it was stuck. She screamed for help, but no one could hear her over the wind. She started to panic, but then she remembered the flashlight in her hand. She turned it on and shone the beam around the attic. There was nothing there. When she finally managed to open the door, she cautiously descended the ladder and quickly left the attic. Vicky decided that she needed to call the police again. She knew that she wasn't crazy. There was definitely someone living in her attic. But when the police arrived, they told her that there was no way anyone could have gotten into her house without her knowing about it. According to them, the only way to get into her attic was through the hatch in her bedroom ceiling, which was locked from the inside. So how was the man getting in and out? One night, Vicky was lying in bed when she heard the footsteps again. She was so fed up with it at this point that she got out of bed and went to the attic hatch. She opened it, and to her surprise, it wasn't locked. When she peered up into the darkness, she saw a blanket covering something in the corner. Curiosity got the better of her, and she climbed up into the attic. As she shone her light around, she saw that the blanket was covering a sleeping bag, and beside it was a half-eaten can of spaghetti and some other food wrappers. Someone had been living in her attic. Vicky quickly climbed down the ladder and locked the hatch. She didn't want to confront the man in the attic, but she wanted to gather some evidence first. So she went to her local hardware store and bought a camera. That night, she set up the camera on a tripod and aimed it toward the attic hatch. She put a bowl of spaghetti and a note that said, "Don't eat this," on the floor beside the hatch. Then she turned on the camera and waited. At first, nothing happened. Vicky started to think that maybe she'd scared the man away. Just as she was about to give up, she saw a pair of feet climb down the ladder. A man came into view and reached for the bowl of spaghetti. He looked thin and unkempt, with long, greasy hair and dirty clothes. He ate the spaghetti quickly, then looked toward the camera. Vicky gasped. The man in the attic had been watching her. The man stared directly into the lens for a few seconds before disappearing back into the shadows. Vicky was shaken, but relieved to finally have proof that there was someone in her attic. She called the police and showed them the video. However, the police weren't convinced. They told her that she should just ignore the man and that they wouldn't be able to do anything about it until he committed a crime. Vicky was furious. She couldn't believe that the police were just brushing off her concerns. She felt like they were putting her in danger by refusing to help. And then one night, the man in the attic disappeared. Vicky never saw him again. The footsteps in the attic stopped, and the humming and the tapping on the ceiling ceased. The camera in her room captured only darkness. To this day, no one knows what happened to the man in the attic. Did he move out? Was he caught by the police? Or did he finally break out of his hiding place and reveal himself to Vicky?